These videos are brought to you by His Vessel Academy. Check us out at hisvesselacademy.com. Today I want to cover how to solve multiplying a trinomial by a binomial. And a lot of times students get very flustered with this because they're not really sure how to even start. So we're going to come up with some steps. So step one in this case would be distribute the binomial, which is the one with just the two terms. We're going to distribute to each of these terms in here. So we're going to do x squared times x plus 6. And it's going to look like this. So we're going to have x squared times x plus 6 plus 3x times x plus 6 minus 5 times x plus 6. So we took this x plus 6 and we brought it into each of these three terms. So that way you can actually see it better. It's a little bit easier to handle and a little less stress. So you'll notice that the first thing I want to do afterwards, or step 2, is I actually want to now multiply each of the terms by using distribution. So in other words, I want to take x squared and I want to multiply it to x, and then I want to take x squared and I want to multiply it by 6. So in this case, I'm going to get x cubed plus 6 to the x squared. And then I'm going to take the same thing with this 3x and I'll multiply it to x, and I'm going to take the 3x and multiply it to 6. This is where it gets a little tricky. Make sure you bring that sign, that -5, all the way through. So continue to tell yourself it's -5 times x and plus -5 times 6. So I'm going to end up with a -30 on that last one. So make sure you do that. So this is kind of what it is. We're going to do it again. First thing I want to do is I want to take that x squared and I want to multiply it to the x. I'm going to get x cubed. I'm going to take that x squared, I'm going to multiply it to the 6x, and I'm going to end up with 6x squared. Now, a good way of doing this too, which may help a little bit when you're doing it, is once you're done with that, we can cross it off. Therefore, we know, hey, I take one term, I multiplied it to a binomial, I ended up with two terms, which I should have. And I have them in order 3, 2. Okay, so it may help a little bit. Now I'm going to come in here and I'm going to do 3x times x, and I'm going to get 3x squared plus, and then I'm going to do 3x times 6, and that's 18x. And you'll notice I get a 2 and a 1. So this is the first power, in case you didn't know. And now I can just knock off that one. So you'll notice I'm kind of counting down. I'm doing 3, 2, 2, 1. And now the last one I'm going to do is -5 times x, which gives me -5x, and -5 times positive 6, which gives me -30. Again, I'm done, and I end up with a 1 and a 0. X to the 0 power is just 1. Anything to the 0 power is just 1. So I'm going to notice something about this, and I want to make sure you realize when my next step is going to be combined like terms. But what I want to point out is x cubed and -30. So in other words, for my first and my last terms, don't have anything to combine. They're on its own. That's typically how this works when you're doing distribution with polynomials. So let's go ahead and jump to the next slide. And I have this right here, and I did color code it so you can kind of see. I take my two x squares, make sure they're the same power. And nice part with this, when you're doing a trinomial to a binomial, typically your powers are going to be sitting next to each other. It gets harder when it's a trinomial to a trinomial or something bigger. But it's still the same concept. You're still going to distribute and then do each one of those, distribute each one of them individually. So let's go to the next part. I have, as I said before, you will notice that this x cubed and this -30 don't change. I have 6 plus 3 is 9. That gives me my x squared. And then I have 18 minus 5x, and that's 13x. And this is as far as I can go. I can't go any further. None of the other exponents match, so therefore this is it. I end up with 4 terms. So when I take a trinomial and I multiply it to a binomial, I typically get 4 terms. And you'll notice I also have a countdown. 3, 2, 1, 0. So unless something is eliminated, say I ended up with a +5 and a -5 in the x version, unless something is taken out where I ended up canceling each other out, I would end up with 4 terms for something like this. So let's do another one. I want you to try it. This one is got a number in front, but don't let it intimidate you. You're still going to take this whole thing and you're still going to multiply it to this. So we would have x squared 2x minus 5, and then we would have plus, and keep going. I want you to pause and see if you can do this. We're going to do it together in a second. So if you at some time want to try it on your own, go ahead and pause it, but we're going to go ahead and keep going. So then I would have x, and it would be 2x minus 5, and then I would have plus 3, and I would have 2x minus 5. And you're going to notice that there you go. I now have everything I need from this. There's my step 1 distribute the binomial. The next thing is I'm going to multiply each term by distribution. So in other words, I'm going to take this x squared, I'm going to multiply it by the 2x. So that gives me 2x cubed. Remember, this is 1, and we add our exponents when we multiply them. So then I have x squared times negative 5, so I end up with negative 5x squared. That's it. Okay, I'm done with that first one. I can knock it off. There we go. I have my two terms. I have a 3 and a 2. We're good. So now we're going to go to the next one, plus, and I'm going to do this. So I'm going to have x times 2x. So I end up with 2x squared. Okay. And then I'm going to do this x times negative 5, which just gives me negative 5x. Okay? You'll notice that I ended up with my 2x squares together. I have two terms, 2, 1. I'm done with the second term. Let's go ahead and do the third one. So I have 3 times 2x, which is 6x. I have 3 times negative 5, which is negative 15. So you'll notice, again, I have 3, 2, 2, 1, 1, 0. I do want to make sure you realize that when you are doing with a trinomial to a binomial, you typically are counting down when you go through it. So we want to make sure that you realize the first one is just going to be 2x cubed. This last one is still going to be negative 15. Might as well put them down. I'm not going to use them. They're not going to do anything different. They're not changing. I don't have anything that matches them. But I do have something that matches these two right here. I have 2x squares. So now I have negative 5x squared plus 2x squared. So I'm really only taking negative 5 plus 2, which is negative 3x. Remember, you're only adding, when you get to that like terms, you're only finding the two that match, or whatever, how many there are that matches, and you're just adding the coefficients, okay? Just the coefficients in front. We didn't change the exponents, we didn't change the variable, we did nothing to them. All we did was add those coefficients, that negative 5 plus 2. Let's do this one as well. I have negative 5x plus 6x. Well, negative 5 plus 6. Hopefully you got 1 on that one. And it's a positive x. And there you go. I'm going to go ahead and just get rid of that right there and just put my negative 15 a little bit closer so that way it doesn't feel like it's way off to the side. But here you go. There's my answer. My next slide is going to show you all of my steps in a little bit neater, so that way you can kind of look at it a little bit better. But you'll notice I also color-coded these, so that way it gives you a little bit of a help there as well. So make sure when you do these, you just go slow, okay? Don't try to do it too hard. It's not supposed to be difficult. You're just supposed to do one step at a time. And if you distribute this all the way through, it makes it so much easier, because then you can just do 2 at a time as opposed to trying to do 3 and miss one and get an error. Hopefully you like that, and you can give me a thumbs up, and I can make more of these. At His Vessel Academy, we offer live interactive classes as well as some self-paced courses. Visit hisvesselacademy.com for more information and register today.